Welcome guys to another episode of 5 Pixel Skyblock. So today I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks that you can use on the garden to increase your farming fortune and ultimately increase the money per hour that you make. So the first tip is, if you are going to build a farm like this and you just use the preset, immediately get rid of it because it is completely useless. Instead, you should use a builder's ruler and build a farm that looks something like this. You can fit almost every farm into a one plot wide range, and then if you paste the farm, you can paste it for 5 plots long, so all of them are now infinite. Another thing is that plots that are 5 plots long and 1 plot wide, ultimately you don't have to turn around as much, and you can use the teleport pads to turn around for you, which actually makes this farm much better than the other one where you have to keep turning around all the time. Another tip for beginner farmers is they should use an armor set like this. The lantern helmet is really good for farming fortune, especially when you are leveling up your farming skill, as well as farmer boots, which are really good for farming fortune and eventually can be upgraded to ranger boots so you can pick your speed. And then rabbit armor is a really good beginner armor set that you can use before you get melon if you don't have the recipe. Or if you don't have enough money for it, it's barely less farming fortune than melon. Now for those that are much more into farming, something that you should know is that ranger boots are actually better than fermento boots for farming fortune. It gives more farming fortune even with the full set ability, and you can also pick your speed, which makes it much better than fermento boots. Another thing is, for those that are looking for a slightly cheaper setup, if you are farming 60, the lantern helmet is only 2 farming fortune less than the fermento helmet. Now, a problem with this is that holding a hoe, it's not nearly as good, but if you hold an axe just like this, and then you open your inventory and place a hoe on top of it, you can see that the farming fortune goes up, and it's only 2 less than the fermento helmet. And that only costs 350k, while this costs over 30 million coins. Although the lantern helmet does scale with your farming level, so if you do not have farming 60, it is not going to be nearly as good as the fermento helmet. And the fermento helmet has the extra chance of getting fermento, squash, and crappies that the lantern helmet does not. Another tip is the pet that you should be using. Now there's 3 really good farming pets that consist of rabbit, mushroom cow, and elephant pet. Now if you are trying to get the farming skill up, you should definitely just be using a rabbit and farming mushrooms because they give the most farming experience out of any other crop. If you are going for money, you should be using either an elephant or a mushroom cow depending on the crop you are farming. Now, if you are going for money, then you should almost always use a mushroom cow on almost every crop. The only crop that you should not use a mushroom cow is netherwort, because as you can see, you do not get any mushrooms from the mushroom cow's perk that should have been giving some mushrooms, but it just does not on netherwort. It does on every other crop, though. If you are trying to get a gold medal or maybe even just a silver medal in a contest, you're always going to want to use the elephant just because of the extra farming fortune that it gives. Using these enchanted books at the Sky Mart, you can actually figure out how much a copper is worth, and then when a visitor comes to your island, you can check to see if the 286,000 coins is worth it with 44 copper. At the current time of recording, this copper is worth almost exactly 8,000 coins each, which would make this 352,000 coins, as well as free farming experience, as well as garden experience. So you can use the copper to find out if it's actually worth it to claim the visitors, but in my opinion, the garden experience makes it worth it almost every single time. However, if you are only looking for profits and not the garden experience, you should check and see if the copper makes the visitor profitable. Another thing is, a lot of people, myself included, continually forget to actually claim the garden farming fortune at the community center. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do it. Another thing is, for those that are working with the composter, you want to make sure that you are using biofuel, as right now it is actually the cheapest fuel to be using, and the best crops that you should be inserting are actually enchanted seeds, as it is about 1,000,000 coins for a full inventory, and it actually fills it up all the way really quickly. You don't even need to use like 4 stacks. Another thing is the composter should always be running on your garden because it is basically free money. You should also upgrade the composter as much as you possibly can because it just increases the amount of money that you make from the machine. If you don't have enough copper, or if you only have enough to upgrade one, you definitely want to upgrade multi-drop as much as you possibly can because it is the most overpowered out of any of the upgrades. If anybody doesn't know the speed at which you should farm, if you visit Flurry J Oreo, on their garden they have exactly what speed and angle you should farm on every single one of the crops. Now these are for 5-row farms for stuff like carrot, mushroom, potato, wheat, and netherwort. I normally do 4 rows for each one, so depending on which you chose to do, the angles and speed may change. You can also visit Flurry J Oreo if you have any specific questions. He does farm quite a bit, so he knows a lot more about farming than I do, and possibly a lot of other people. So any questions, you can go ask him if he is online. If not, just wait till he is online and you can ask him then. Now in previous videos I have gone over what crop makes the most money and which ones you should use for farming experience, especially those for both farming experience and money, but if you haven't seen those, I will go over it very quickly. If you want consistent money, you should be farming netherwort with an elephant pet because that just gives the most money out of any single crop. If you want to gamble, basically, you just farm some mushrooms because that gives really good money, but it's not as much as netherwort unless you get lucky with burrowing spores. Now, personally, I've gotten very lucky with burrowing spores, and my mushrooms have made me a lot more money than farming netherwort, but don't expect to get lucky because that is somewhat unusual. However, if you're going for farming experience and money, mushroom is still the best, because it gives really good money, just like netherwort, but unlike netherwort, it gives a lot more farming experience. Basically, any of the other crops aren't really the meta for farming experience or money. Basically, the only reason they're good are for crop milestones and farming contests. That is going to do it for today's episode. If you did enjoy this episode, make sure to leave a like and please consider subscribing if you are new around here, as it helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys next time.